So last week, it was reported that Microsoft was going to lay off approximately 2,000 people to their gaming division. But unfortunately, I'm here to report on one of the saddest news stories of the year and the continuation of layoffs. And Microsoft approximately cut 4% of their total global workforce, which was mainly in their game division. That added up to 9,100 people. Candy Crush developer was heavily impacted by the layoffs and other parts of the gaming business, including Microsoft-owned Bethesda London office, were also affected. And Rare was not immune to these layoffs. In fact, Rare's long in development Xbox game Everwild was cancelled as part of these layoffs. And of course, they laid off a large portion of Rare, which brings into question if in the future they're going to be closed, which is sad considering that Rare is one of those legendary development teams that has been around for a long time, which also led to a developer that's been there since 1990 to step away and probably retire or go to another studio. Unfortunately, this isn't the only bad news when it comes to cancellation. The Perfect Dark game was not only canceled, but in fact, the entire Initiative studio was closed down. And this is probably one of the saddest ones because a lot of people were looking forward to a Perfect Dark game. It's been a while. There were also several other projects that the Initiative was working on that have not been announced that have also been canceled within that studio. This is the fourth round of layoffs to hit Microsoft gaming business in the past 18 months following the cuts in January 2024 of 1,900 staff, shortly after closing Arcane Austin and Tangle Warps in September 2024, laying off 650 staff members, and May 2025, 6,000 staff members. This, in my opinion, is an unprecedented amount of layoffs, especially of them doing this like 4 quarters in a row, considering that they have been doing really good in profits in terms of their game division. Last fiscal year, they made about $15 billion, with that going up 5% in 2025. And I kind of commented on this before that this feels like pure greed by Microsoft. A friend of mine was commenting who works in business, who does business and the number in business, was saying more than likely they're cutting this staff in order to save money in the future and then hire staff that is not requiring them to give them the base salary that they're looking for, but in order to give them less salary for less experienced workers. Microsoft is providing severance, healthcare coverage, and job placement resources impacted by the employees, and encouraging them to explore other positions within the Microsoft gaming with priority review. These cuts come despite Microsoft's recent confirmations of plans for next-gen consoles and a strong presence at Gamescom. So it's not like Microsoft is doing horribly. They want to continue with Xbox, even though it's not really going to be your traditional custom chip Xbox. It's more going to be like the Rogue Ally Xbox handheld that is going to be Xbox branded with an Xbox Game Pass kind of layout where the game can be streamed on your handheld, but it's going to be a branded PC that Asus is going to be working with that more than likely is going to have its custom OS kernel that's going to be able to emulate or run games natively, which would be easy considering most of their games are on PC and would be ready to go right away. I want people to keep something in mind while I report this story is that it's not like Microsoft Gaming Division is hurting for money. Like I mentioned a little while ago, these cuts come because of the fact that they have a giant workforce. They bought Activision Blizzard and King and also Bethesda Studios, which was a concern for the FTC when they first bought Activision Blizzard and King, that they were going to lay off people right away. In fact, they went back on their word right away and blaming it on Activision Blizzard that they were laying off people right away, that it wasn't Microsoft's choice, but it was more Activision Blizzard doing all the cutting, and kind of put the blame on them instead of saying that, this was our choice because they wanted it to be a better purchase for Microsoft overall. And with the administration changing in the White House and also another FTC head in charge, nobody's really going to look at Microsoft and kind of break them up because of these cuts that they did with jobs. This is something that is going to become more frequent, considering that there really isn't any sort of regulation at the moment, and the electronic state and the gaming division entertainment is kind of the Wild West, and they can pretty much get away with doing this. And unfortunately, there is a lot of people that are saying, I told you so, that Microsoft was going to do this. And I'm one of those people that were saying that Microsoft is probably going to do this in the future in order to make more profit in their gaming division, even though they're doing record amounts of profit at the moment, even though Xbox isn't really doing all that well. I want you to keep this in mind while we go through the story of layoffs of over 9,000 people and 4 quarters in a row of people being laid off. The CEO of Xbox, Phil Spencer, has an annual salary of $10 million. Satya Nadella also has a significant compensation package with a total compensation of $79 million for the fiscal year of 2024. However, only a portion of that stock is tied to Xbox performance, with a majority coming from stock awards. This is for both Phil Spencer and Satya Nadella's compensation packages. So even if they do horrible by laying people off or with doing horrible in overall performance, the overall stock and the way stock performs in Microsoft is how they make their money. And gaming is only a small portion of Microsoft's overall profit. So if Microsoft does good because a new Windows comes out, or because new software comes out, or because they sell a crap ton of more Windows, or they make a new phone and that does profit, they still make money. The CEO of Nintendo has a salary of $2 million a year, which is funny. The last time that Nintendo was doing horribly, the CEO took a pay cut in order to not lay off a lot of their talent. And of course, this is something that Nintendo did, and I would be willing to say that an American company, an American CEO would never do such a thing. And after reading all these reports of 9,000 people being laid off, I think we can officially say that gaming is in a recession, and the bubble that was the pandemic of companies overestimating themselves and making record high profits because people were staying home. And I think they knew that this was eventually going to pop, but they did it anyways because it would give them intellectual properties from Activision Blizzard and King, and gave them a mobile market that would make them lots of money. When companies buy you, they're not buying the talent. At least that's the way Microsoft sees it. This is a company that is not creative. This is a company that doesn't know how to be creative, because if they knew how to be creative, they would understand that you're not only buying intellectual property, but you're buying the talent, the people who make these games, the people who are there working day and night and grueling hours and doing crunch time are what bring in profits to your division. And unfortunately, this seems like Microsoft is going to have to learn the hard way. But honestly, I don't think that Microsoft takes their gaming division all that seriously, because if they did, this wouldn't be at the point that we are right now, where they're trying to make up for $69 billion of an acquisition of where they wanted to get intellectual property instead of getting the talent, and understanding that the talent is what makes you money. Every single year, I look for an excuse to buy an Xbox, and almost every single generation, I find a reason not to get it, because of the fact that Microsoft never really took its gaming division seriously. It was more to compete with Sony and with Nintendo to try to get a market of people that they felt was going to make them a bunch of money. Not because they had a passion to do this or a creative desire to do something. Of course, the money is a big part of why people do this. Sony didn't make PlayStation because, oh yeah, let's make creative. They wanted to get back at Nintendo for Nintendo betraying them. Nintendo naturally evolved from making toys to making video games, which is why you see that creative part of Nintendo come out constantly. Sony, of course, has been a creative company for the longest time and expressed their creative tendencies through video games and naturally evolved for making movies and for making other entertainment shows and naturally evolved into PlayStation. And for Microsoft, tell me what creative area that evolved into Xbox and tell me what it was that they used to be before that was creative or entertainment. This isn't Microsoft's strong suit. This is why their software UI interface is often praised by people, including by me. Microsoft has some of the best console UIs on the planet. They make great software for their Xboxes. Their UIs are completely flawless and a lot better than Nintendo's and PlayStation's. The thing that they lack and they continuously drop the ball on is the creative part of software. They don't know how to incubate talent. They don't know how to manage their projects properly. And of course, that led them to buying Activision Blizzard and Bethesda, which added up to almost $80 billion in total and led them to lay off 9,000 employees in 2025 and almost 20,000 people in total laid off in the last 4 quarters. It's clear that Microsoft and Xbox do not have that creative power to make video games like the rest of the industry does. I would say that Sega could make a console again and more than likely outcreate Microsoft. This is why you don't see LG making a console. This is why you don't see Samsung making a console or other giant electronics companies trying to make their own gaming console because of the fact that it's a lot harder than just throwing money at it. You have to learn how to incubate talent and also how to manage your projects properly. Something that Nintendo and Sony, hell, even Sega has done better than Microsoft over the years. I'd like to say that this is the end of layoffs in the gaming division for anybody, but more than likely there's going to be more layoffs, whether that's in Xbox, PlayStation, probably not Nintendo because they don't really let go of their talent like that, but there's more than likely going to be more cuts, whether it's an Embracer or another giant company that has a giant stake in games. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think games are in a recession? And also, do you think that more layoffs are going to happen? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think that these layoffs are justified, unjustified? Let me know what you think below. And also, remember, you're pretty good.